Did you know the Sahara Desert was green? Somewhere in your kitchen right now, there is more food than you need for tonight. Cans you're saving for no particular reason. A freezer stocked past what's reasonable for one household. A pantry you keep topping up just in case. You call it planning ahead. Your ancestors would have called it survival. Because 10,000 years ago, one of the greatest dangers on Earth wasn't a predator or an enemy or a war. It was a season that simply never ended. Look at the Sahara Desert today, and you see nothing but sand. For 3.5 million square miles, one of the harshest landscapes on the planet. But go back 9,000 years, and the Sahara was green. Rolling grasslands, shallow lakes, rivers full of fish, wetlands stretching further than any desert stretches today. Hippos wallowed where dunes now sit. Giraffes and elephants wandered where nothing at all wanders now. Ancient rock art, carved into cliffs that overlook nothing but empty sand today, still shows herds of cattle grazing, swimming figures in open water, boats gliding across lakes that dried up thousands of years ago. Then, slowly, over the course of centuries, the rain simply stopped coming. Scientists call it the end of the African humid period. The Great Lakes shrank first, retreating year by year. Then they vanished entirely. The grasslands turned to scrub, the scrub turned to bare rock, and the bare rock, eventually, turned to endless sand. It didn't happen in a single dramatic year that anyone could point to and say, "This is when it ended." It happened slowly enough that generation after generation kept believing the rain would return next season. Right up until the season, it simply didn't. The people who had lived across this green Sahara for thousands of years now had a choice to make. Stay and gamble everything on the rains coming back. Or move toward the one water source that never failed, the Nile River, cutting its way through the desert like a single green thread through 1,000 miles of nothing. An entire landscape's worth of open grassland and scattered lakes emptied out, generation by generation, and the survivors funneled into one narrow strip of fertile mud running along either bank of the river. And in that narrow strip, something entirely new was born. Because a river valley, unlike open grassland full of wandering herds, could not feed everyone by simply gathering whatever grew nearby. It demanded planning, months in advance. Grain had to be harvested and stored against the coming flood season. Storehouses had to be built, guarded, carefully rationed out through the lean months. The community that saved enough grain survived the bad years. The community that didn't simply starved and vanished from the record. This single narrow strip of hoarded, guarded, meticulously rationed land became Egypt, one of the greatest civilizations to ever exist, born directly out of an instinct to stockpile against a disaster that had already happened once and could easily happen again. You still carry that exact instinct today, even if you've never once seen a drought in your life. It's why you feel a flicker of unease when the pantry runs low, even though the supermarket is 2 minutes away. It's why entire store shelves emptied out in the first weeks of a global pandemic. People hoarding not because they were being irrational, but because some ancient part of the brain remembered exactly what happens when a season doesn't end on schedule. It's why you keep a savings account you privately call a rainy day fund. Insurance policies for disasters that haven't happened yet. A freezer stocked full for a winter that hasn't even arrived. The green Sahara is gone now, completely. The lakes, the hippos, the giraffes, the rock artists who once painted swimming figures onto cliffs that now overlook nothing but empty sand. All of it buried under dunes that stretch further than anyone alive will ever walk. But the instinct they left behind, the quiet, constant urge to store just a little more than you strictly need, just in case the rain stops again. That instinct is still sitting in your kitchen cupboard right now, waiting.